did foreign before road. He wanted to show me all the countries that he traveled through when he was in the army, when he was fighting a war. It was England and Germany and France, Scotland to Austria, and Wales, and then back to Denmark. And we put our car back there, and then we flew back home from Denmark. We took the routes that he took because he had written down exactly how he had gone. I mean, he was England first, because the ship landed in Southampton, England, when he first went over. They didn't fly them over then; they went by boat. And poor Harold got so seasick all the way over. Not, he wasn't in a good frame of mind to begin with, and then he was so sick. See, he was in chemical warfare, and this was a small unit that traveled along with various armies in case it would be needed. They weren't counting on using it, for aggression to any of the countries, but they wanted to be prepared if they had to, and so that's why the group that he was in, his army, traveled with these bigger armies like Patton's army, and they traveled with them and traveled all through Europe. His army, his battalion, I should say, traveled with these bigger armies. They were the ones who were knowledgeable as far as chemical warfare was concerned. So anyway, this is what he said. That's what he'd like. He said, let's do that for our first trip, which is what we did. Well, it made it very interesting because he had seen all these, he had been through all this, and a lot of the places that were bombed out, of course, they were being built up again and all this. So that was interesting, not only for him, but for him to take me these places. And so we did all the traveling that he had done by jeep, we did by car because he kept riding in jeeps all the time. That's what ruined his back because he had a bad back to begin with, and all this jeep riding really ruined his back. He had a lot of problems with his back when he came out. Well, we usually took about 6 weeks. Well, we didn't see everything, but like we didn't go to Italy or places that he did not be. We just went to the things that he did for the first time we went to Europe. But it was really very, very, very interesting to it was interesting for him to go back too and see things, you know, through different eyes now. When we went to Europe, you could read signs and so forth, and you could make out what it was. So if we could read signs, we would rent a car, and Harold would drive, which made it very interesting because we could go as far as we wanted, or if we wanted to stop to see something, it wasn't that we were with a tour, only could go to such and such a place, but we could go where we wanted to and see what we wanted. I knew a little bit of French that I got in high school, and he knew a little German. And if you know those two languages, you can sort of figure things out. They're both Romance languages. So he got us through Germany and Austria and those countries, and I got us through France. Everything was different. It'd be like going through saying which town did you like best when you went into a certain state. Yeah, I mean you can't really say everything is different. It's all relative, but you have different things that you remember about different places. Oh, it was interesting because what we did, uh, we'd always look for a church on Saturday, no matter what country where we were, or what kind of a church it was. As long as it was a Christian church, and we'd go so that we'd go to a church someplace, and you'd get a lot of people spoke English, which was a help. and we also went to Rotary meetings. That was more when we went to, Europe. No, went in the United States when we were traveling by car by ourselves. But we did when we traveled overseas, the countries that we could drive in, we didn't have to take I didn't have a license to drive there, but Harold got an international license, so he could drive in all these countries. I don't remember how he did it or what he had to do. Well, it was in those days. We stopped going to, foreign countries when he couldn't drive anymore. Uh, they wouldn't let him drive over 70. He couldn't drive in Europe anymore. So if we had gone to Europe, we'd have had to go on a tour or trains or buses or something like that. But it was fun going on our own the way we did. Oh, we tried to avoid the main highways whenever we could. You get to see so much more if you go the not go on the highways, especially the Autobahn in Germany where everybody you might be driving 70 and they're all passing you. That's no fun. But when we went on our own to these various countries and weren't on a tour, we did more of that by ourselves, but that was more fun. They're so old that everything is more congested. The countries themselves are not that big. There are a lot of countries, in Europe, where our country is so big. Uh, United States is so big. Canada is so big. There, this countries over there are smaller but uh, and they're so old that they're so built up in their countries. You know, it's when we say our country, when it was celebrating its 200th anniversary, well, they're talking about their their not hundreds but thousands of years old. One time, different things were so different over there, really. Uh, one time we were driving in, I guess it must have still been in Germany, and we came to this walled city. Uh, 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 where they had a wall built all around the city. And we thought, oh, that'd be interesting. Let's drive in through here. So we drove in through there, and it got to be dinner time. And we said, well, let's have dinner here. And all of a sudden, one of us said, why don't we stay here tonight in this walled city? So we did on the spur of the moment. But I'm getting ahead of myself now. I don't think I would say I would go to another country in Europe. I would go to another continent. I never wanted to go back to a place where had been, because going back, you never get to this. You never have that same feeling. Uh, I I'd want to go to another country if I had all that time and was in physical condition and not as old as I am. If I could get to another place, I'd want to go to a new place that I had never been. I hope you can get to visit some of these countries sometime.